Hey, what's up everybody, Josh here, and I want to talk to you a little bit today about the Amazing Spider-Man 2 game to coincide with the movie. Just came out today for the Xbox 360, PS3, PS4, Xbox One, and I believe the Wii U as well. Now, I played the PS4 version of the game, and right off the bat, I realized that an Amazing Spider-Man really is not so amazing here. And I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. First off, let's take a look at the graphics. Now, as long as you're in motion, flipping around the city, web slinging and all that, it does look pretty good. The Spider-Man character model doesn't look bad, the lighting effects look pretty solid when they shine through, the cityscape, but it's whenever you slow down or have to stop and take a look around that things look really ugly up close. And it really does look almost last gen in a way, and in a way I kind of understand that, because if you're designing across multiple platforms and you have to, kind of design for the lowest common denominator, I could understand where that might account for some of that, but it really just looks quite bad. And it's not just the character models or the texture work, there's just some weirdly proportioned things too. For example, you'll see a television reporter holding a microphone and the microphone's just like as big as her head, and it's really strange. I don't know if there's just something off about my perspective or the way my TV looked or something like that, but it just really looked bizarre, and a lot of the character models just look kind of chunky and not real great. So, not the best looking game, which already kind of, knocks it down a little bit. But then, let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. The gameplay itself kind of suffers in a way too. It's kind of repetitive when it comes to the side missions. You will beat up the same 4 guys over and over again. You'll save the same 3 people that are stranded on top of a burning building over and over again. And the reason these side missions exist is because it's got kind of a morality system in place. Now, we've seen this in games before, but it's rarely implemented well because it turns morality into a very black and white issue, when in reality, that's anything but. So the way it plays out here is, if you save people in time before a mission expires, or if you stop a crime before it gets a chance to complete, then you get kind of hero points and your meter goes up on the hero side. But then if you miss the opportunity or fail the mission, then you kind of descend into the menace side, and the Daily Bugle will paint you as a horrible menace, and then you have to deal with that in the form of the police dispatching these kind of higher tech units that were developed by Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, to kind of track you down and make your life more difficult. They're really not that difficult to deal with, it's just kind of a minor annoyance. Now, the fact that the side missions are kind of repetitive is sort of bad enough, but then on top of that, this really just bizarre design decision really holds it back. And the thing that I'm talking about is, once you complete one of those missions, every single time you get this weird 10-second cutscene of a reporter just sitting there kind of lifeless and motionless with a voiceover of her saying, Spider-Man is awesome because he did this, or Spider-Man's horrible because he failed to do this. And it happens every single time you complete a mission. It's horrible. And the thing is, it's not just horrible because it's in this game, it's particularly bad because it's a Spider-Man game. And I'll explain what I mean by that. When you think about Spider-Man, what is the defining characteristic or the thing you think about most? Now, I'm not talking about personality traits like, oh, okay, he's honorable and he's heroic and he's brave, not that stuff necessarily, but just the physicality of Spider-Man. What do you think about? He's agile, right? That is his defining characteristic as far as I'm concerned. He doesn't have crazy energy powers or anything like that. He has the proportional strength of a spider, he's thin, he's fast, he's wiry, he's agile, he's hard to get a beat on, and that's kind of his advantage, in addition to kind of ripping on his foes, verbally whenever he's, battling them. But that's the defining, physical characteristic of Spider-Man. So, by definition, you would hope that the entire experience would be an extension of that. You would see it to be very fluid, but unfortunately, there are tons of load times, there are kind of unnecessary pauses that really just kind of cripple the pace of a game that ought to be just kind of free-flowing and smooth all the way through. And it just kind of detracts from this really big way that's hard to ignore. I played through 1 or 2 boss battles, and they're really nothing to write home about either. It's pretty standard fare, and there are also some stealth missions, or rather you can approach a situation stealthily if you want by kind of crawling on the ceiling, then rappelling down, and then webbing up a bad guy, but 9 times out of 10, I saw no reason to play the game this way, because the enemies are pretty dumb on their own, and it's usually quicker just to kind of zip line from one enemy to the next, pummel them, and then get out. And speaking to the combat for a minute, it does borrow heavily from the Arkham series. Clearly they saw what was done with Batman and tried to replicate it here, and they kinda did, but it just doesn't have that panache. It doesn't have that solid polish that the Arkham games brought to the table, and again, Spider-Man suffers for it. Not very amazing. So, I'm only about 2 or 3 hours into it so far. I don't even know if I'm going to finish it to do a complete review. My initial impressions are it's kind of bad. It certainly has some moments that are exhilarating, once you really get speed, whenever you're web slinging, it's pretty slick, but all of these individual elements just don't come together in a meaningful way. And that really sucks, because this is a character that absolutely deserves to have a game on par with the Arkham series. And the weird thing is, when you look at the history of Spider-Man games, typically what you see is every Spider-Man game tends to do one thing really well, but it just doesn't do all things well. For example, Ultimate Spider-Man looked amazing. It nailed the comic book look with its cel-shaded graphics. The original Spider-Man 2 movie game nailed the web swinging mechanics, and it just felt right, really, really good. But they also suffered in their own ways. You know, the original Spider-Man 2 movie game was kind of repetitive. Ultimate Spider-Man game, even though it was very, very pretty and fun to play, was only like 4 hours long. So it's a shame to see all these really good ideas throughout the history of, you know, Spider-Man's appearance in video games, and never see them all kind of come together in just one really glorious display. I'm waiting for that 9 or that 10 Spider-Man title to come out, and I'm not sure if I'm ever going to see it, as long as, you know, the most that we're getting are spin-offs of the movie, or, you know, games that don't try to bring all the elements together and not just one. So that is my take on The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Let me know in the comments below if you think that's too harsh, but, you know, based on what I've seen so far, I think that's a pretty accurate view of what you can expect if you pick this game up. I would not pay full price for it. I would pick it up pre-owned and probably in 2 to 3 months, just if you're a hardcore Spider-Man fan, but otherwise there are better games worth your time, and certainly better looking next-gen games that are worth your time. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Alright, later.